Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I I'm just absolutely gobsmacked by your phenomenal story. And I mean, you just have this constant, you have one of these beautiful faces that smiles from the inside out, that even though you're not actually smiling, you still have this incredible positivity. You can see that in you. Um,
Yeah.
would you mind if we went back a little bit just to kind of talk about, by the age of 18, had you made any decisions about what it was that you wanted to do in life? Had you made plans, studying or, life plans really?
Yeah, my aspirations from an early age were to become an accountant. I thought accountancy was a sexy thing to do. I think I fancied a girl in my class when I was 10 and she wanted to be an accountant. And I thought, oh my God, that is so cool. I want to be an accountant. I don't know whether it was that made me want to be an accountant or whether when I worked in my father's clothes shop and when I served
Mm.
people at the cash desk and gave them the right change, they went, "Oh, what a clever boy!" And I thought, "Oh, I might be good at math." So that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do.
And when you were faced with this, this situation where you lost your sight, what was your initial thought, and what were the plans that you then had to make from that point on, I guess?
Yeah, I remember waking up. I was 18 and I couldn't see, the picture at the end of my bed. And I realized
Mm.
that I was now blind, because my parents knew about it from the age of me being 4, that I would become blind in my mid to late teens. And so, but I didn't want to be blind. And I was just hoping that I could just, wake up and be my normal self. But the
Yeah.
reality was that, my life was now, going to be different. It's going to change. Um, I remember that day I was walking around, I was crashing into things. I couldn't see the faces of my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters. I was just thinking, like, I wanted to drive. I know it doesn't sound cool, but I wanted to work in restaurants and bars and, go to cinemas and do all those things that 18-year-olds do. But now I didn't know where my life was going to go. And I remember just being depressed for a few months and thinking that this was it, that life was over.
But you did then go on to study, didn't you? You did go to university, and what did you study at university?
So I went and studied math, stats, and finance as I had planned. And the lecturers were
Mm.
advising me to study something like, English or politics, something literal. But, because I had my dream to study maths. And so I went ahead and made it happen. Back in the days, this was in the 90s, there was no accessible technology. So I had to use the cassette and to record my notes onto tape. And
Oh
I
my
started
god.
to do that. And as I I mean, it was a crazy situation because some of those equations would take the entire side of a 60-minute cassette. I mean, if you used to, present Top of the Pops, and I remember, I used to have a cassette player and I used to record the songs, and try and cut out the DJ if you could in your recording. So I
I
had
won't
all the
take it
cassette
personally.
players.
I won't take it personally,
Nothing
don't worry.
personal. No, it's not personally, but because then you could show off to your friends that you actually bought the cassette. um, but yeah, it was quite a challenge. But I found that by taking the little steps that I did, that things started to work and I started to progress. And then
Yeah.
I was finding that people around me just kept saying that I couldn't leave the house unaccompanied. Like I remember my mother saying, you're blind and you can't leave the house. And I just decided that I didn't like this life of being wrapped up in cotton wool and live in a protected box. So against the wishes of my parents, and lecturers, I decided to do the third year of my degree out in Canada at Queen's University.
Mhm. And is that where the
Yeah,
kind of
and
traveling bug started? Is that where you got that kind of, or have you always had that hunger to explore and to, to kind of
um,
learn about new places and cultures and
yeah, I don't think I had it in me to start with. I think it was blindness that actually made me want to see the world. So it was blindness that wanted me to seek out the independence. So I flew out to Canada with just myself and my blindness. I didn't know anybody there. And I had such a fantastic time. And I learned so much about myself and about the world around me. And I didn't think that, traveling was something that you could do regularly. Like I just went there, as a student, and then I still came back and pursued my career as an accountant. And I guess that little thing must have set a spark up, for me to kind of pursue something in travel.
so how did we get from, studying to be an accountant to then appearing on Beyond Boundaries and then going on to, semi-final of MasterChef? This is an incredible journey that you've been on.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, when after I came back from Canada and I graduated, I went to I was at University of Strathclyde in Scotland, and I got a 2-1 in math, stats, and finance. And when I started applying for jobs as an accountant, I faced rejection after rejection. All my sighted friends were landing great jobs, and I was finding that I couldn't get my foot in the door. And then one of the top five accountancy firms wrote to me and said, "Look, Amar, we really enjoyed meeting you. But the reason why we didn't give you the job is because we just don't believe that a blind person could be an accountant." And this came as a big shock. You always think that the world is your oyster and everything's going to be plain
Mm,
sailing as long as you put in the hard work. But um but I suppose it woken me up to realizing that I wasn't on a level playing field. So then I fought my way through. I ended up changing my tack, and at the next interview, I basically suggested to do, presentation in which I told them about blindness, how, as a blind person, I would actually do the job. And then I ended up landing 3 job offers, in a row. And I got into British Telecom as a graduate accountant, and then, worked in there for about 7 years, and it was an incredible experience. But then
mm,
I felt like something was missing in my life. I had money to spend, but I wanted to go to travel. And, I think that's where being to Canada had really helped. But then when I approached mainstream travel companies, they just said, "Look, you're blind. You can't come traveling unless you bring somebody with you, like a caterer." And I thought, I'm a young independent professional. I just want to be able to go and see the world without any restrictions. And so I realized that if you want something in life that doesn't exist, you've either got two choices: you either do without or you go to build it yourself. And that's when I
mm.
set up Travelize.
Yeah. It's an amazing, the being kind of faced with these kind of knockbacks and it blatantly being because of your sight, but that not kind of diminishing your drive and your determination to do the things that you want to do and experience the things that you want to do, as a person with full sight would. I think it's such an inspiring story to hear. And so tell me a little bit about Travelize, and also the feedback that you've had from other people about the experiences that they've had through you setting this up.
Yeah, well, so Travelize is the world's first international travel company that takes groups of blind and sight people all over the world on holidays, and we bring them back too. And the big difference is that, the big difference is that, half of the group are blind and half the group are fully sighted. And each day we partner a sighted person with a different blind person. And in return for guiding and describing the sites to our blind travelers, our sighted travelers get to travel for a reduction in price. And we do all sorts of trips, like we offer 70 tours a year now. And from the more active holidays, like, sailing, skiing, walking holidays, to like discovery tours, sunshine breaks. And, we just have so much fun on these trips. Like I just remember like a moment recently, we were on our Sorrento tour and we were doing a tour of Pompeii. Have you ever been to Pompeii?
No, I love to go to Pompeii.
Oh, it's such a lovely place. And then we were all stood outside this ancient Roman brothel. It's 2,000 years old, and it's because Pompeii was basically a very vibrant city, and then when the volcano erupted in 79 AD, it got stopped in its tracks, and they just discovered it recently, like about 100 years ago. So we're stood outside this ancient Roman brothel, and then I said to the travelers, "Look, describe everything with loving detail to your partners." And there was this like 60-year-old sighted lady. She worked for the UN, and she had a 23-year-old visually impaired partner, and she's like, she just struggled to describe, how can I say, like these explicit frescoes above each door to her young partner. And she said, "Oh, Jenny, do you fancy a cup of tea instead?" And I remember Jenny saying, "No, actually, I wouldn't mind having the frescoes described, please." Um, but yeah, we have so much fun on these trips, and it totally, it restores your faith in humanity when you see the collaboration between the sighted people and the blind travelers. It's just incredible.
It's kindness, isn't it?
Absolutely. When I'm stood, Edith, on top of a beautiful vista, and you've got 10 sighted people with their blind partners, and each of them are describing with such lovingness and care and passion about what they're seeing. And I'm just stood back listening to 10 different descriptions going on, and it totally restores your faith in humanity.
I'm a big believer as well in stepping outside your comfort zone and doing things that scare you, or kind of that push you to try new things. And I think you're a great advocate for that as well. And at MasterChef, you've said was a bit of a kind of stepping outside your comfort zone, because you said to me just a minute ago before we uh, we started doing this, was that I didn't think I could cook. I think you proved people wrong, or you proved yourself wrong, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I absolutely did. Like I never thought I would go into MasterChef. The bosses contacted me previous year and said, "Do you want to go on MasterChef?" And I said, "I can't. I'm blind and I can't cook." And then they came back again this year, and I said to my agent, "Tell them that, I'm still blind and I still can't cook." And but this time they ended up wanting to see how we could make it work. And so that was an example of me limiting myself, thinking that I couldn't do it as well. Um,
Mm,
I would say to anybody, like, firstly, don't have any preconceptions about what you can and can't do, and don't let anybody else put limits on you either. Decide what you want to do, totally freed from any kind of limitations, and then set your sail and go for it. I mean, sometimes initially it might sound daunting, to make that big leap, but I always say, like, you're not making a big leap, you're taking little baby steps. And, we all have our own obstacles to overcome, our own mountains to climb, but you shouldn't let that stop you from achieving what you want in life. And it's so important to create that mindset that lets you believe that you can be limitless. And what I've realized is that it is daunting at the start, and as it was for me when I was 18 years old and I lost my sight. But what I found is when you do start taking those smaller steps, you begin to realize that things may be difficult, but by no means impossible. And
mm.
as you start climbing, your chosen mountain, you start seeing the most incredible views all around you. and even though I'm blind, I can still see them.
That's amazing. I was really lucky in that I did a travel series called Rough Guide a lifetime ago and got to go to places that I only ever dreamed of going, places like Bolivia and Japan. Um, and when you kind of, when I did that introduction and listed the things that you did on Beyond Boundaries, uh, it's
Yeah.
extraordinary to think what you achieved on that show and what you pushed yourself through as well. Is there something that you would say that the biggest thing that you took away from that experience, or that you learned about yourself from that experience?
From Beyond Boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I mean, I found that I learned it strengthened my ability to be resilient. There was so many times on that trek. It was 220 miles from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific Ocean of Nicaragua, and I wasn't just walking by myself. We were 11 people with different disabilities, and I was pushing a wheelchair through a dense jungle at 40 degrees heat. And every day I was thinking, oh my God, I don't think I can make it anymore. I was literally exhausted. I'd lost so much weight. And, and I'd just say, look, I'm just going to take it step by step. And so by taking that mindset, I think that really got me through, and I learned the importance of being resilient and having a positive mindset, to get you through whatever challenge that you can face.
It's interesting, we're kind of celebrating St. Andrew's Day with this wonderful celebration tonight, and I think as well celebrating the wonderful traits that as a nation and as Scots that we have, wherever we live in the world, that still, we'll always be Scottish, and we'll always come with a kind of Scottish package. And I think that part of that is this wonderful kindness and resilience, but also compassion for people. I think that is something that I see in so many Scottish people, and I think that that's one of the wonderful things that you
Yeah,
see through the way that you talk about what you've been through as well, and like you say, not taking no for an answer, and proving people wrong, and continuing to surprise yourself as well, I think.
absolutely. And I think, I guess I've been blessed because by losing my sight, I've been able to create that mindset, that thinks positively. And had I not been blind, I don't think I would have done half of the things in my life that I've done. And it's kind of weird, and it's true that blindness has actually helped me see the world in more
Mm.
ways than one.
I think it's wonderful as well that you're then taking that on to make sure that others are able to see the world through, setting up Travelize. Have you got a wish list? Have you got a bucket list in terms of things that you want to do? And because it's the already done's is pretty. It's a pretty extensive list already. But have you got a kind of to do list of a life to do list?
Well, I mean, in terms of destinations where I'd like to go, I mean, I've traveled to over 100 countries and traveled more than half a million
Whoa!
miles. But like, when people say, where would you like to go? And I'm like, I haven't been to Cornwall and Devon. I need to go there because everyone says how nice it is. So it's kind of weird, it's all relative. But I mean, in terms of a bucket list, I mean, I guess my aspirations are always to, help people, achieve their full potential and not have any preconceptions, whether they're blind or sighted. So you know, I'm writing a book, and I'm doing a few more things, to do with that. But so my bucket list's always got things, but it's I think I go with the flow quite often. I think
Mhm.
you've just got to be open to opportunities, like when they come. I never reject an opportunity. If it sounds good, I'll always take it. I mean, the Celebrity MasterChef was an exception. That was one time that I tried to reject it, but it came back, and I'm so glad that I actually did it. And I had limitations about what I could do. I wasn't really great in the kitchen. I was so busy in fancy restaurants every time, like on Travelize trips, we'd eat out, and I got so used to that, and I was busy with other things, and cooking wasn't a thing that I thought I, as a blind person, could do. And it was such an amazing experience that it kind of totally surprised myself.
Um, what's next? What can we watch you and be inspired by watching you do next?
Well, I am going to be doing my book that's coming out. So during lockdown, it gave me a great time to reflect. So although I couldn't travel outside, I was traveling in my mind to all these great places. So that I'm working on that at the moment. So hopefully that might be ready for next year. And then I've got lots of stuff that I've been working on telly, which I obviously can't talk about just now. But watch this space. But the my main passions are making a difference and helping people to realize that you don't have to be blind to have a mindset that allows you to just throw yourself and not be able to see obstacles because being blind, I don't see any obstacles, and that is such a great thing to have on your side, and it helps you to achieve so much more.
Incredible. I can't wait to see what's next. I really am excited and I'm looking forward to reading the book. And it's nice to hear as well you've been using, the lockdown and the COVID situation with a positive, constructive spin as well, finding things to do whilst we've been
Yeah,
tied down.
that's right. Well, it was crazy because being blind, my friends couldn't obviously come out, walking with me and stuff. And I got so frustrated during lockdown, the first one. Like I did get COVID
Mm.
and I did end up in hospital for a few weeks,
Did
for a
you?
week. Yeah. And then but I wasn't on the ventilator, but I did think my number was up. And when I was lying in that hospital bed, I was thinking, everybody who's feeling frustrated at home, they shouldn't, because we should so appreciate just being alive and being able to breathe. But then when I came back, I was like, I want to go out for like walks in the countryside, and my friends can't come with me. So I created a new system. Like I got my friends on a video call. I bought this little strap that you
Mhm.
can tie to your chest, and I put my phone in it. And I went off to the neighboring woods and went walking with my friend, and they would describe the beautiful green trees and the beautiful bluebells that were out. And since going blind 25 years ago, I've never walked in the countryside by myself. And this was such an incredible experience. And I remember saying to my friend, look, do you mind if I switch the phone off? And I sat down by a tree. And I thought, how lucky am I? I've got this ability now that I can actually be free. And although I wasn't able to travel the world, inside in my heart, I just felt so free. And the kindness of my friends was just amazing. And it just unlocked something really, really special for me. So I did that. And then the other thing, now that we're out of lockdown and we're in another lockdown, I realized that, you know, yeah, I've realized that blind people can't actually, it's very difficult for us to be guided around airports and train stations because, when you're being guided, you link arms and obviously that's not 2 meters distance. So I've created this new product. It's called the Companion Cane, and I'm going to be featuring it on the One Show in the next few weeks. And it basically allows a blind person and a sighted person to walk in the countryside or in trains and in airports and keep that 1 meter, 2 meter distance. So yeah, watch this space.
You are extraordinary. And it's also just that thing where you're not just thinking about making your situation easier for yourself. It's the way that you're constantly and always thinking about others and about how you can make life, you know, more adaptable, more accessible for others. You're an absolute inspiration.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I just think that I've been so lucky that I've had, so much support from my family and friends. And, I'm in this fortunate position, where I feel I can make a difference. And, being blind can be really hard. Like a lot of blind people can get depression if they don't get the right opportunities. But the thing with me was I was so stubborn. I was always very stubborn since I lost my sight. So I had this single-minded determination, and that's kind of helped me. And I feel that I should use that to make a difference for other people.